The film opens with Levon Cade waking up in the front seat of a battered pickup truck which was his makeshift home. After a moment to gather himself, he heads to his job at Garcia's construction site. Upon arrival, a coworker greets him with a warm gesture, handing him breakfast prepared by his wife, specifically for Levon. It's a small moment that quickly reveals Levon standing with the others. He's well-liked and respected by those around him. After accepting the food with quiet gratitude, Levon takes charge of the morning meeting, organizing the crew and assigning tasks for the day. Later, he steps into the site office where he meets the Garcia family: Joe, the gruff but fair owner, Carla, his kind-hearted wife, and their college-age daughter, Jenny. Jenny hands Levon a stack of billing documents before turning to her father to request money for her upcoming semester. Joe hesitates, clearly burdened by financial strain, but he eventually gives in to her demand. Back on site, Levon notices a group of strangers who were clearly not part of the crew, confronting one of the workers. Their demeanor is unmistakably threatening and it was almost Mafia-like. Levon calmly approaches and asks them to leave. When they reject his advice, he responds with precision and force, swiftly neutralizing each of them in a display of combat skill that stuns everyone watching. Jenny, who was holding the food her mother made, approaches Levon afterward, full of curiosity. She asks if he had served in the military. However, Levon jokingly brushes it off and urges her to keep what she saw to herself. But Jenny pushes a little further and even tells Levon that her grandfather once taught her how to break a finger as she begs Levon to teach her how to fight. Later that day, Levon visits his daughter, Mary, at her grandparents' home. The moment she sees him, she rushes out with joy. But the reunion is bittersweet. Due to a custody ruling after her mother's tragic suicide, Levon is only allowed 2 hours with Mary each week. Her grandfather, Levon's father-in-law, is cold and confrontational, still believing Levon is unfit to raise her. Determined to make the most of their time together, Levon takes Mary out for dinner and gives her a heartfelt gift: a photo of her and her late mother. The gesture breaks her in grief, as Mary admits she feels abandoned and lost. Days later, Levon meets with his lawyer to discuss the custody battle. Things are not looking good, and when asked why his father-in-law seems to hate him so much, Levon explains that the man blames him for his wife's death. In truth, she had been struggling with depression while Levon was deployed in the military. Regardless, he's committed to reclaiming custody and he is ready to do whatever he can. So, he hands over all his savings to the lawyer in order to fund the legal fight, and he even goes out to rent an apartment in the hopes of providing Mary with a stable home. That night, Jenny and her friends went partying at a local clubhouse. While there, one of the bartenders spots her and discreetly alerts a Mafia member named Viper. As the night continues, one of Jenny's friends becomes sick after drinking too much and needs to use the bathroom. After Jenny escorted her there, she decided to give her some privacy as she stepped outside. However, while alone outside, Jenny is suddenly ambushed and kidnapped by a group of masked men. The next day at work, Levon notices police officers stepping out of Joe's office. Moments later, Joe and his wife eventually approach him in a panic and break the terrible news to him that Jenny is missing. The two desperately begs him to help them find her, but Levon tells them that he has decided to leave his violent past behind and start a new life afresh for his daughter. He even refuses the $50,000 Joe offered him. However, despite his refusal to engage himself, that evening, Levon goes to visit his old friend, Gunny. He was a former military comrade, who is now blind in one of his eyes as a result of an incident where Levon had saved his life. When Levon tells him about Jenny's disappearance, Gunny doesn't hesitate to highlight how much the girl means to the family. The conversation reignites something in Levon, and in the end, Gunny tells him that they both know that he is going to take the job. The following day, Levon visits Joe and quietly promises to bring Jenny home. He tells Joe that he and Carla alongside Jenny had become a family to him. So, he immediately begins his investigation at the bar where she was last seen. As he walks through the alley, he finds a broken piece of Jenny's necklace which serves as proof that she was taken from there. So, he proceeds to track down the bartender at the bar, following him home where he eventually confronts him. Although the man denies any involvement, Levon sees through his lies. And within seconds, Levon had him cornered and tied inside the bathtub. He tortures him, and just when the bartender was beginning to loosen up, some of his associates enter the house. Realizing that this could mean freedom for him, the man shouted out for help. But before they could enter the room, Levon successfully uses the man as a body shield to block off the men's bullets, and then he swiftly takes out the men. On their bodies, he finds tattoo evidence linking them to a Russian mafia and then takes the cash on them to use as leverage. The next day, a group of gang members, including a man named Wolo, arrive at the house. He tells his men that he suspects that someone is hunting them. So, he quickly orders his men to clean up the scene, and they leave. Unknown to them, Levon was tracking them, and he eventually trailed them to Wolo's expensive mansion in the woods. When he arrives at the location, Levon observes from the shadows before making his move. He quickly infiltrates the building, after ensuring that Wolo was alone. He knocks him unconscious and ties him to a chair by the pool. When Wolo regains consciousness, he warns Levon that he's crossing a dangerous line. However, Levon tells him that he knows how dangerous he could be but that he is not there about his affairs, just to get answers. So, Levon throws the money he had taken from the apartment at him and proceeds to question Wolo. When Wolo refuses to answer his questions, Levon cuts the rope tied to the chair, making him fall into the pool and drowning. Before his death, Wolo had revealed a crucial piece of information and it was linked to Dimi, who was his son. With this revelation, Levon wastes no time and begins tracking him down. But just moments after Levon leaves Wolo's residence, a powerful mafia figure named Yuri arrives. One look at Wolo's lifeless body and the CCTV footage is all Yuri needs. He immediately declares that this wasn't just a hit, it was a message. And unlike his calculated father, Dimi is reckless, impulsive, and unpredictable. Sensing war on the horizon, Yuri orders his men to hunt down the person responsible. Meanwhile, Levon continues to dig deeper. He reaches out to a trusted contact in the police and asks for intel on Dimi. What he hears is alarming. He is informed that plus Dimi isn't some petty thug, he's a major player in the Russian mafia. He is ruthless, well-connected, and feared even among other criminals. Despite the warning, the officer hands Levon a lead to a bar known to have ties with Dimi. That night, Levon walks into the bar and orders a beer as he tries to blend in. But his presence doesn't go unnoticed and soon, one of the bouncers sizes him up and decides to intervene. After realizing Levon isn't just some curious stranger, the man leads him to Dutch, who was a mid-tier enforcer with deep ties to the underworld. But something feels off and the mood quickly shifts. As whispers spread, the crew begin to suspect that Levon might be an undercover cop. Dutch doesn't waste time and he gives the order for his men to take Levon out. What follows is a brutal, one-sided brawl. Levon moves with deadly precision, taking down his attackers with ease. Just as he's about to finish one of them, Dutch steps in, totally impressed by his moves. He tells Levon that he sees something in him, something that looks like military. So, Levon confirms his past in the service, and Dutch, now intrigued by him, decides to hear him out. Levon immediately decides to improvise and claims that he's looking to score drugs for a client. Dutch, who bought the act, agrees to set up a meeting with Dimi himself. In the meantime, Jenny had been taken to the man who had ordered for her. However, before he could proceed with his intentions for her, Jenny lashed out and severely injured his face. And this made the man order Viper and his partner to take Jenny away. The following day, Levon eventually meets Dimi. Although Dimi was initially cautious and suspicious of Levon, he soon realizes that his driver's license checks out. Once satisfied, he hands over the drugs. Levon, who is actually not interested in the product, disposes of it immediately. But during his time in the bar, he spotted Viper. When he double-checked the pictures, he saw that Viper was also at the bar when Jenny was kidnapped. This realization hits him hard and he immediately slips out to track Viper's movements. But at this point, the gang is already onto him. One of the security soon notices Levon watching them and she immediately calls out their men to attack. Realizing he's been compromised, Levon quickly attempts to make a hasty escape on a motorcycle. However, after a relentless chase through the woods, he is finally captured by Yuri's men and thrown into a van. As they drive off and threaten Levon, he seizes an opportunity to quickly respond and he attacks the men, killing the two of them, who were Yuri's sons and also the driver. Although the trunk crashes by the river, Levon successfully escapes and then tilts the vehicles into the water in order to erase any trace of him before vanishing into the night. Word about the death of his sons soon reaches Yuri, who becomes extremely furious. He immediately calls for a meeting for the Mafia Brotherhood where he relays the threat Dimi poses to the group. He is eventually given a green light to approach Dimi by the gang council. That night, Yuri and his men stormed into Dimi's hideout as Yuri proceeded to question him about his involvement with Levon. When Dimi couldn't produce much details about him except for the fact that he has Levon's driver's license, Yuri informs Dimi that Levon is the one who had killed his father and that Dimi may be next. After leaving Dimi's place, Yuri's team immediately set out to find Levon and they eventually stumble upon information about his father-in-law. The very next day, Levon is asked to pick up his daughter from school since her grandpa didn't show up. When he does, Levon immediately senses that something is wrong. So, he quickly drives to his father-in-law's house, only to find it in flames. Realizing that he was still inside the burning building, Levon charges in and manages to rescue him just in time. After this incident, Levon worries about his daughter's safety and he decides to take her to Gunny's place. There he leaves Mary under Gunny's care and then promises her that he would return home soon. Before leaving, Levon arms himself for the battle ahead. Gunny showed him to his arsenal and allowed Levon to make his pick of weapons. Meanwhile, Jenny is being transported out by Viper and his partner. Dimi had actually ordered them to take care of her after causing so much trouble for him already. But during the drive, Jenny seizes an opportunity after knocking down the front seats and makes a daring escape into the woods. As she arrives at a clear opening, she spots a police patrolling car and she frantically signals for help, only to discover, too late, that the officers are part of the gang. She is taken back to Viper, who quickly carries on with his plans to eliminate her. But just before he could proceed, Viper receives a call from the same man Jenny had injured. He requested that she should be brought back to him and that he has unfinished business with her. His offer was too good to decline, so, without hesitation, Viper and his partner accepted the offer. Elsewhere, Levon fights his way into Demi's hideout and confronts him. With his life on the line, Demi reveals Jenny's location and tells Levon about Viper's role in gathering intel on the abducted girls. Now armed with the information, they arrive at the address Demi had given him and Levon executes Demi before setting out to rescue Jenny. Meanwhile, back at the gang's hideout, Dutch is informed that Levon has already infiltrated Demi's compound. Wasting no time, Dutch sounds the alarm, rallying his crew to launch a counterattack. But it's already too late. Levon has moved with brutal precision, eliminating every guard inside the safe house one by one. By the time Dutch and his men arrive, Levon is already in control, and he takes them all out in a ruthless showdown. In the end, he decisively kills Dutch. Inside the back room, Levon storms in and shoots the old man on sight. Then, he beats Viper mercilessly before finally taking him down. Jenny, meanwhile, refuses to go down quietly and she turns the tables on Viper's partner, overpowering and killing her. In the end, the siege is over. Levon cuts Jenny free, and just as they're preparing to escape, Yuri's enforcers arrive. Heavily armed and merciless, they open fire on Levon and Jenny. But Levon thinks fast and uses the Bluetooth sniper rifle gun he had given him, taking out one of the gunmen. Then he pulls the pin on a grenade and eliminates the second in a blast. With the last threat out, Levon and Jenny escape on a motorcycle, riding off into the night. Watching from afar, Yuri reports back to the Mafia council. But the leader orders him to stand down. The devil, he says, got what he came for, and the brotherhood always comes before personal revenge. In the film's final moments, Levon reunites Jenny with her grateful, tearful parents and they thank him for saving their daughter's life. Then, Levon returns home to Mary and Gunny's family where they sit down for a quiet meal. The war is over, and for now, peace has finally come, at least for the time being. And that was the movie A Working Man, where Jason Statham proves once again that sometimes, the most dangerous men are the ones fighting the hardest to hold on to their humanity. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Thanks for watching.